Today I'm happy to introduce D. Jin. He's the Advanced Development Leader in the GM Product Cybersecurity organization, where he works with GM R&D and engineering teams. Prior to joining GM, he worked as the Senior Security Technical Specialist at Chrysler. He began his career as the lead security engineer at GM OnStar. He received his PhD from the University of Oklahoma in electrical engineering and computer engineering. Today, he will be giving us an introduction to the GM Product Cybersecurity organization.
Right. All right. So thank you, Professor Maggi, for the introduction, and thanks for the serious invitation for me to come over here and present our GM product cybersecurity overview. I'm very pleased to come over here, and I'm very excited to present what we are doing in the current effort. So the presentation today will cover various different topics within cybersecurity at a fairly high level. It will cover things like the cybersecurity ecosystem, the connected connectivity, increase the connectivity, and also the attack surfaces, the lack of cybersecurity talents, our cybersecurity vulnerability disclosure programs, et cetera, and also things like external, internal development and external collaborations as such. So the cybersecurity has become a really hot topic for pretty much all the industry, and specifically for automotive industry, there has been a lot of news recently. If you follow some of the news, you will hear a lot of news and articles talking about automotive cybersecurity, not only GM, but basically the industry across the board. When you are in this cybersecurity business, you want to hear all the good news, which, some of those good things that happen, that GM has been working on are reported, and that's good. And you don't want you to be in the sort of the other spectrum. So the IoT really is the Internet of everything right now, and the vehicle is part of the overall IoT system. So the consumers around the world has constantly request, constant connectivities to their devices, and also just a seamless connection feature and performance. So it's predicted that by the year of 2020, there would be about 50 billion of connected devices connected to the internet, which, if you think about it, is effectively about approximately 7 devices per person on the earth, which is a huge amount. So among some of the various type of connected devices, only about 10 billion would be like your smartphones and tablets. The rest are the machines that you typically don't see, but they are connected to each other and they are talking to each other. Things like the various type of sensors, the smart power meters, and things like that. There are a lot of other things like the point of sale and ATM machines, just a lot of different various of things. So for GM, we recognize the need of product cybersecurity, and we are the first automaker to create a dedicated, integrated, and a global organization for product cybersecurity. This centralized organization handles the vehicle cybersecurity aspect of our whole product. So you can see that this is our World Technical Center, which is in Warren, Michigan, and our corporate headquarters is in Detroit, and specifically in the Renaissance Center building. This is our core technical competency where it's at. We also have engineers in the Palo Alto team, and GME in Germany, and also Israel. We have our Advanced Technology Center over there. We also have some other affiliated engineers that are working in Korea, in China, and South America region. So it's truly global organization. So the organization was created 3-4 years ago, started with a handful of engineers and managers, and now has grown into a team of over 80 people, 80 internal experts on various different things. And the team will continue to grow over time. So the automotive industry nowadays is changing very fast in the last 5 years than any given time in automotive history of the past 100 years. So our CEO actually once upon a time said that she would expect there is more change in the next 5 years than it has in the last 50 years. So you can see the dramatic change of the automotive space will potentially pose some challenges in the cybersecurity area. I can give you a couple of examples. So, for example, in 2017, GM will have its first vehicle that supports vehicle-to-vehicle communication capabilities. These are our 2017 Cadillac CTS. And another example is that we're going to have a so-called Super Cruise capability on a 2017 Cadillac CT6, which is our flagship sedan, luxury sedan. So the Super Cruise capability, what it is that it provides you a hands-free experience and capability on the divided highway. It's got limitations. You got to be on the divided highway. It utilizes the advanced GPS technology to first make sure that you are actually on a divided highway. Otherwise, the system won't engage at all. So it also utilizes some other advanced monitoring capability to make sure that the driver, pays attention as the vehicle is moving at a certain specific time interval to make sure that the driver is constantly paying attention of the vehicle condition. So this kind of echoes what our CEO stated before. So the GM OnStar has responded 1.3 billion button presses and customer requests over the past 20 years. OnStar first launched in 1996, which is the first of its kind in the industry, and we are the industry leader in the telematics space. Really, if you think about it, 1.3 billion button press response, that's like every person in China or in India press the button once, which is pretty significant. Our global volume will have 75% that will have connectivity feature by the year of 2020. So which further demonstrated the increased connectivity feature of our current modern vehicles. So as you can see from the presentation slides, there are many different kinds of potential attack surfaces, right? If you kind of categorize it, it's gotten some of those are wired, some of those are wireless. And even for wireless, you got short range and longer range, right? So if we talk about, for example, the wired connections, you got a USB port in the vehicle. Some vehicle has a SD card port. Some still got a disk, a CD in it. And That's wired, and the electrical vehicle charging station is also another thing that is, connected to the vehicle. It connects to the to the power grid, and also, for example, you got phone projections, right? You have the Google and Android Auto and the Apple CarPlay. You can hook up your phone through a USB, and your phone screen will be projected onto the vehicle. I will later on show some picture of that. And that feature even can be executed through a wireless link. And also you have a DLC, so to speak, that's the data link connector, which essentially is the OBD2 port, which is onboard diagnostics. So it serves as the purpose of, for the service mechanics to diagnose what's wrong with the vehicle. It is mandated by the legislation that, every vehicle that's produced after the year of 1996 will have such a port. So now, speaking of the wireless connections, you've gotten the Bluetooth, the near field communications, you've got Wi-Fi, you got the V2V and the V2 vehicle to infrastructure, the SRC, the dedicated short-range communications. So these communication channels are sort of shorter range to medium range. Now, other than those, you've got the GPS, the Sirius XMs, the AM, FM radios, HD radios. You've got the cellular, 3G, 4G cellular networks. So those are longer range, which can enable a lot of features that is very convenient. So the growth of the infotainment and telematics features have introduced many wireless connections, and as such, the attack surface is increasing. So we need to do a diligent work to make sure that those increased connectivities doesn't produce a security vulnerability. So now moving forward, I'd like to talk a little bit about the cybersecurity ecosystem. So our organization is the overall responsible for an end-to-end system. So from an end-to-end standpoint, we have the vehicle on the one end, and we have the back office that the vehicle is communicating with. And in between is the telematics channel that's sitting over there. So each one component, so to speak, will have its own characteristic and presents its own unique cybersecurity risks. And we need a different set of tactics to handle and tackle the cybersecurity problems. So our team is composed of various different teams within our teams, some of which are working on the in-vehicle ECU security. Some of those are working on the connected ECU, electronic control unit, that will talk to the back end. And we also have a team that's focusing on secure the telecommunication part with our telecommunication partners. And we also have a dedicated IT, vehicle-facing IT security team. That's a little bit different from the traditional IT back office, from the perspective that it's vehicle facing, is handling vehicle services and requests and things like that. So we are looking at the cybersecurity posture from an end-to-end perspective, and we are implementing defense in-depth strategies to make sure that we have multiple layers of protections to the whole ecosystem. In cybersecurity, there is no silver bullet for any kind of industry. So a a better strategy is that we got to put multiple layers to protect our core interest there. So now let me go into a little bit detail to talk about these. Our cybersecurity team also has a dedicated red team supporting our internal penetration testing, which is very much needed. It's a team of certified ethical hacker that has great expertise in hacking embedded systems, cyber physical systems. They have great understanding of the whole ecosystem, how it works, and how it's put it together. So we, as I mentioned before, we took the defense in depth, and I will be speaking a little bit more in the following slide. So we do one step further. Now, in terms of defense in depth, you design a security solution from the very beginning of building a car, right? Build vehicle with security in mind. Because security is, if you're patching it, that's cost a whole lot more money, then it was built in the beginning. So we took one step further to say, hey, we got a secure solution, but the cybersecurity landscape constantly changing. Its dynamic nature is very much its nature, because the attackers can become stronger day after day. We become stronger day after day as well, but we need to constantly monitoring what's going on in the vehicle, what's sent from the vehicle to the back end and from back end to the vehicle. And we need to detect if there is any sign of intrusion or anomaly. And we need to quickly respond to any event that is suspicious. So we've built our capability in detecting, monitoring, and responding to a cybersecurity event in our team. So another thing that I'd like to mention is that the security vulnerability disclosure program, which I will talk a little bit more in detail in the following slides, but GM has launched a disclosure program started from January this year, and we have received ample amount of submissions from the white hat hacker or white hat researcher, so to speak, the research community. So many of which are general IT related issues and submissions. A few of those are vehicle related submissions, and our team is working diligently to assess the issue, to talk to the researchers constantly, to understand better what the issue was, and to come up with a solution to address any potential concerns over there. So, and also, in addition to that, GM really views cybersecurity not as a competitor advantage. So we really view it as not a collaborative one, a competitor advantage, but as a systemic concern that the whole industry needs to be, needs to pay attention. And ultimately, the whole industry serves a collection of customers, which is the society, can only be better served if we work collaboratively to fight against the hackers. So we joined the Automotive ISAC, Information Sharing and Analysis Center, which is a group of automotive OEMs. Altogether, there are now 15 OEMs participating, which covers 98% of all the light-duty vehicles in North America. So that effort has took off, and now a lot of involvements. People, so the intent of that is the auto ISAC is that people will become, or OEMs or the automotive industry become more open in collaborating with each other to identify the potential trends of the cybersecurity effort, so to speak, and to identify the potential cybersecurity intelligence to share with the whole community to benefit each other, just so that everybody is aware and everybody is thinking about how do we do better. Which comes back to the point where cybersecurity is not a competitive advantage, but everybody needs to work together collaboratively to address the issue. It takes more than a single entity to work on cybersecurity to improve our overall industry cybersecurity posture. We have built strong relationships with external groups of researchers, of standardization activities, with universities, etc. So. All right. So as the technology are enhancing and the entry point to the vehicle are increasing, so the attacker has gotten more potential place to play around with, around. So GM is focusing on protecting the customers from the standpoint of the three major categories. We protect the anti-theft of vehicles, and we protect hacker from tampering the vehicle. Our customers' safety is our #1 priority of the corporation, and we are very serious about the privacy of the customer data and data privacy, data security. We also prevent use of harmful softwares and making sure that there is no counterfeit part into our supply chain. So this is more of the motivation of our cybersecurity efforts. And we sell a lot of cars worldwide under different brands. I'm sure everybody here are pretty familiar with the first four. This is our GM Opel brand, and this is the Vauxhall, which is primarily focusing on the England area, and this is a Holden, New Zealand, Australia. This is a Baldwin, Wuling, and FAW. This primarily is a joint venture activity with, I think, China. So our joint venture actually produces almost half of the volume of our worldwide volume. So which represents a significant part of our sales. Okay, now let's talk about the motivations of the adversaries. So there are primarily two types of attacks, right? If you think about focusing on the vehicle side, you got the infiltration of the vehicle and to influence the vehicle behavior. You got the data exfiltration, which can potentially pull the data in the vehicle out and make use of that. So there has been a lot of work being done by the enthusiasts and the white hat hackers and the researchers in this space. And the work has been going on for a while. So our view of the adversary categories are the following: the enthusiasts, the hackers, the hacktivism, the entrepreneurs, the organized crime, industry, and competitors, and nation states. So each different adversaries has its different goals and motivations. And so far, what if we draw a line so far, then primarily is right here. The white hat hacker is where the current state is at. So a lot of collaborations are happening in this space between the OEMs and the open research community. So now let's talk a little bit about the a bit detailed, but not so detailed, the defense in depth strategy. So we have to secure the external and internal of the vehicle to make it a layered method. And the attacker must be able to overcome the different layers to get the crown jewel. And we are making it very hard for the attackers to do that. So, and again, to reiterate, the ability to monitor, detect, and response is very critical in this. The Security Vulnerability Disclosure Program. So GM is actually the first major automotive OEMs that has this program. And it started, as I said, January 2016. So we have seen a lot of good collaborations with the researchers, and the team is diligently dealing with the issues and talking to the researchers and to get the issue fixed and closed. So we collaborate with HackerOne, which is a service provider, disclosure service provider over there, and we have a portal on the HackerOne, and if you want to search, you can search HackerOne GM. That will probably bring you to there. So why is it important? Because the cybersecurity is one of our top priorities, and we really want to make sure that the customer is safe and their data is secure and our product is safe. So by having this disclosure program, that will keep us up to date on what the latest research has represented, and to keep us working on improving our cybersecurity posture over time. So, and it also helps us to maintain our leadership's position in the product cybersecurity area. We can also identify potential collaborative relationship with the researchers. So it is very successful to date. Okay, now let's talk a little bit about the challenges that the automaker is facing in the cybersecurity space. So the typical automobile has a pretty long life cycle. We are now designing a vehicle 5 years down the road, and the vehicle will be on the road for another 10, 20, 10, probably 10, 11. I heard the average statistic is like the vehicles are on the road for 11 years or something like that. So you could see a lot of the vehicles that are even older than that on the road. So to protect vehicles that was designed 10 years ago is a different story than protecting vehicles that are newly built. So it's just the nature of the long product life cycle pose a potential challenge on maintaining a higher level cybersecurity on the older cars. the technology differences between the commercial, the consumer and the vehicle electronics is another challenge. Let me give an example. So in Michigan, if you leave your smartphone in the car, parked in your garage overnight, the next morning when you enter the car, picking up your phone, what happened? The battery is dead, right? So the battery cannot withstand that kind of temperature. But for vehicle, we have to design vehicle with very stringent environmental requirement, such as hot, cold, moisture, humidity, vibration, all of those. So which puts a lot of constraints on how the vehicle can be built and how the vehicle, in what condition the vehicle can run. So if we park a car, during the night in the winter, the next morning the car battery is dead, then it's not acceptable. And as a matter of fact, the car has to withstand some temperature like -50. And we have to make sure not only it works, but it will continue to work in that situation. So it puts a different constraints on the vehicle than the consumer electronics. Complexity is a enemy of security, so to speak. The more complex that the system is, then the more difficult it is to make it secure. For example, the cars in 2000 only have 1 million lines of code in the vehicle. Now the Chevy Volt that's introduced in 2010 has 10 million line of code, which is even more than a F-35 fighter jet. Nowadays, the vehicle on average has 100 million of code, which is, if you think about it, is amazing. It's much more than a lot of the other things you can think of, the Boeing of 747, the fighter jets. It's a lot more than that, and it's going to increase to 200 million line of codes in the near future. So which adds a lot of complexity to the vehicles. You can almost say that the vehicle nowadays is running on ones and zeros. Almost you can say that. So another thing is that really the cybersecurity talents is far less than what's needed. The talents are you guys, which is why GM joined CERIAS this year into the program and trying to collaborate with the Purdue and to move forward the educational program to help Purdue to produce more cybersecurity talents, especially in the cyber physical space, IoT space, and automotive specific is the best. Purdue has a long history of the cybersecurity excellence, which is recognized, and that's why we choose Purdue to collaborate with. All right, autonomous is another very hot word. As a matter of fact, I have my colleagues, Mike Imo here, who is the autonomous cybersecurity group manager over here supporting me. And in this presentation, I'm glad that Mike made it. So autonomous vehicle pose another set of challenges, right? It shifts from the human to the software to get the input of the situation the vehicle is running, and then have to make a decision in real time to make sure that the system is driving safely. So it puts a lot more security and a robustness requirement, even higher requirement on those properties. And autonomous vehicles blends traditional automotive electronics with IT system-like devices. So the traditional vehicle ECUs, you can think of that as an embedded system for the most part. It's gotten limited computational power and memory space and the resources that you can run and build security on, versus the other opposite, which is the IT. Generally you got a lot more resources to work on. So how to make sure the heterogeneous state of the vehicle, and how to have a cybersecurity solution that accounts for the various difference of the capability of the system is a challenge. And you've got the autonomous vehicle also has LiDAR, which is a light and which is a light distance and the ranging, and the radar, the radio distance and the ranging, the camera data coming into from the sensor. So it's a lot more inputs that the vehicle is getting, and each one will have its own characteristic and it needs its own cybersecurity solution to secure it. So, and also the physical security aspect of the occupant cabin requires additional cybersecurity measures. Now you have all the sensors, LiDAR, radar, cameras. It's outside of the vehicle, and you have to think about how to make it strong to protect from tampering, compromising physically of the part. So those are some of the newer concerns in the automotive, in the autonomous driving space. Okay, now it's you, the skills and opportunities. So our team is a really diverse team, and we've gotten engineers, electrical engineers, system engineers with cybersecurity backgrounds, with cryptography backgrounds, and traditional IT backgrounds, the security architecture, program management, R&D, and even hacking, as I mentioned in the beginning. So this is just some examples skills that's going to be needed for a successful cybersecurity engineer, for an engineer to be successful. Now, there are a whole lot more other skills that will be needed or developed when you are working in the space, such as collaborative skills, communication skills, et cetera, et cetera. So, which is typical to most of the other jobs as well. So we see a lack of the talents in this space, and we hope the universities can do a little bit more in that education of embedded systems, security, automotive systems, and embedded system security, and just promote the understanding of these different systems and prepare the talents to be ready to get into the workforce. So some of our openings are, this is just some of our current openings. We've got engineers, we need the PMs, program managers, we need the researchers, and we also have internship openings for next year. So if any of these in the previous slides, if any of those interest you, please talk to me and Mike afterwards. Would like to understand a bit better of your interest and your qualifications. And so some of the advanced research topic that we're doing right now, which will need your help eventually, are like remote attestation, which the backend could know at any given moment what is the software that's running on the vehicle. Is there any new malware that wasn't supposed to be on the vehicle that is currently present? And by remote attestation, we could detect that. But how do we make it more efficient? It is essentially the core issue. And intelligent intrusion detection systems and the intrusion prevention system, how do we make it more smart, right? Make it smarter. We could use machine learning, artificial intelligence to be the brain to make a decision whether that's an intrusion or not. I mean, it's monitoring is basically simulating the brain. Sometimes the brain can handle things that are fuzzy and then still make a good decision, but it's very difficult for the vehicles or for anything machine, because it's not as good as the human brain yet. Cyber forensics, high assurance architecture, non-cryptographic security solutions such as the physical layer security, or using physical properties to enhance security, such as anti-jamming. You can use the power consumption of a hardware to tell whether it has unintended function embedded into the hardware as a hardware trojan or something like that. And the sensor anti-spoofing is another thing that is critical to the autonomous driving vehicles and applications of potential artificial intelligence into the cybersecurity. So I'm pretty much coming to the end of my presentation, and here are a couple of things. So, this is, I hope it's your next car. We have Chevy. This is a little bit off for some reason, the picture. Our Chevy Bolt EV is the first electrical vehicle that crack the code of affordability together with a 200-mile plus driving range. So it's good. And our Buick vehicles are GMC trucks and SUVs, our Cadillac luxury brand. And I want to also talk a little bit about Maven just. So it is estimated that right now there is 15 million of people who are using the ride sharing or car sharing, and GM basically combined a couple of different programs and made it into a Maven brand. So this is our brand of sharing. And we are operating in half a dozen, now is probably more than that, US cities. And we also have presence in Germany, in China, Brazil, and more to come. So this shows you the interior of our Cadillac, and you can see the 3D map over there. And this one, as I promised, you can see the Apple CarPlay there, and a few more interiors. Now is really the end of my presentation. So any questions or comments, I'm happy to take. Yes?
Yeah, I have a couple of questions. One is, when you have these big thunderstorms, how does it affect the capability of GPS communication with your car? Does it interrupt it in a way, or when you have the big thunderstorms.
Oh, big thunderstorm?
Yes.
Oh, okay. Well, I'm not certain. I'm the expert to answer that question, but
But are you asking that from a security perspective?
No,
or, I mean,
well, you can say you are driving a car, all of a sudden there is some kind of a big thunderstorm, and if it is autonomous, basic car, it's going to cause some accident, and all of a sudden, basically, there's a pileup or something. So that's one concern.
okay, gotcha.
Yeah.
So the GPS is my understanding. I'm not an expert on the GPS, but it's my understanding that the GPS now is pretty reliable. It can, in many cases, it can battle against the bad weather. That's one. And the vehicle also has a dead reckoning capability, where if you lost, for example, if you lost the GPS signal, if you're in a tunnel, the vehicle, that reckoning algorithm can still know where your vehicle location is, and predict your trip or your route. And also, the vehicle has initial measurement module, IMU, which it's gotten its zero into it. It knows where you are, your relative position of the vehicle, and things like that. So all of this could help in this situation. Is my understanding, because it's not really my area. Do you have anything else?
So if you mentioned autonomous, the vehicle's not going to be driven with GPS. It's going to be driven by all of that other sensor data.
Yeah, because they're controlling basically the location with respect to the other cars. That's one thing that you're gonna basically consider, because that's one thing. And the other thing that I'm concerned about is the amount of these frequencies that have they done any studies how, because like the noise pollution, this is going to becoming frequency pollution, and there are some people, maybe they have some different devices in their bodies, and maybe the other devices, and all of a sudden, if there's some disruption or something, have they done anything in that regard not just the human being, because there are also the other animals, and maybe we know that there are some of these mammals in the sea, they get affected by the communications of the basically submarines and some of the other things. So
I think he's telling us that Greenpeace is going to come after us and start suing General Motors.
no, I'm not saying that. I say basically forecasting or basically being concerned about what's going to happen next, because you can do everything, and all of a sudden you're going to be in somewhere that it gets out of control. So
Yeah.
that's
I
it.
don't know I know we're very limited on the government tells us what bands of ranges we can be in. I don't know if you know of any areas where we've really tested the limits of that and how much noise is too much noise. I don't know much
I
about
guess
that.
this is kind of outside of our area, right? Because within GM, we definitely have a team to cover that. But I will be happy to write down your questions and
Okay.
get an answer for you offline.
I'm just saying these are some ideas which come to mind when you think about, because there's some of the things which poses some concern of what's going to happen, because everybody sees the good thing. Oh, we're going to do this and this and that, and then all of a sudden, oh, how come this happened? So,
Okay.
yeah, thank you.
Yep.
I have a question, security versus safety trade-off. So if, let's say, to provide integrity, we sign messages and we use certificates for parties authentication, it will take time to validate certificates, to verify signatures, and then it imposes overhead so that the message is delivered with delay to the mechanism, to brakes or to the engine. What do you think about that trade-off? And my second question about secure programming techniques which you use in the company. You mentioned that the firmware of modern vehicle is more than 1 million lines of code. Then probably you use some static code analysis tools, memory protection tools to prevent bugs, buffer overflows in that code.
Yeah. Yep. Okay. Good question. So let me try to address both of them, and Mike can help. So the cybersecurity and safety is not conflicting to each other. The cybersecurity is supporting and supplementing the security part of it, the safety part of it. We are making the vehicle more secure by leveraging the cybersecurity mechanisms. So you talk about the code signing, the certificate, and all the things like that, which potentially adds a little bit of overhead and potentially adds a bit of delay. But we are making it in a way such that it won't cause a huge delay that will impact the safety critical systems. So there are still solutions out there, to make it harmoniously work. And also, for example, the lightweight cryptographic algorithms, you can still make it strong enough and yet efficient enough, and don't cause overhead to potentially influence the safety aspect of it. So that's for our next question.
I'll just add one more
Oh,
thing
yeah.
what you said there. So to what Dee's comment is we're still bound by the same requirements that we were before cybersecurity was in the picture. Just like you said, that message for brakes or whatever that has to go across the bus, it has to get processed just as fast as it did before. So to Dee's point, we're adding more horsepower, we're adding hardware accelerators to do that quick cryptography and still meet the time requirements. But we're not adjusting any of our performance requirements. We're not allowed to adjust any of our performance requirements just because we're adding security, because that'll come right back to us, right? Well, you can't make our cars work if you're adding this security. So we're bound by those requirements still.
Yeah, to your second question, sure. Those are some of the best practices that's recognized by the industry, and as a matter of fact, various entities are suggesting and recommending and issue guidelines, such as the SCE J3061. They have the cybersecurity guidebooks recommending you have to, it's recommended that you take the processes to make your development, life cycle secure, to implement, to utilize static and dynamic code analysis tools constantly at the code check-in, and then the next day you're going to address all the warnings identified by the tools, and do it next time when you check in again, run the tool. So yes, those are some of our best practices that are being employed. Yep. Any other questions?
So with devices that we have right now, I have the privilege of saying, sorry. So with devices we have right now, I have the privilege of saying, do not track my location, or do not send out a signal to this particular. I can control what apps can track my location, or what apps can learn what information about me. Do you think as automotives you can afford to give the user the privilege of saying that for this duration or on these days, I don't want you to track my location, I want to be offline? Is that a privilege you can afford to give the users, or is that something that would contradict with the entire purpose of having an autonomous system?
Yeah, I want to hear you answer this question.
I don't know. I have a good answer for that. It's sort of outside of my expertise, so I would have to defer that question to some of our internal experts on that.
I can't answer it either, because it's a messy legal question, right? But to opt out, anybody can opt out of OnStar, right? And I guess it would be the same thing here. If you want to opt out of being tracked because of some service that General Motors wants to buy, that's fine. Where it gets sticky now is, all right, GM knows that there's a vulnerability out there and it's attacking vehicles in the greater Seattle area or whatever. We're going to eventually get to that point. What do we do, right? If we think you might be over there, should we force the update to you? It's a whole legal discussion now that we're trying to have. If privacy gets involved, and yeah, It's messy, yeah. So no telling where that's going to go yet.
Good question. All right, any?
Thank the speaker.
All right, thank you.